So hello, folks. I'm Nick Bernardo, your host of MyGovWatch Live, the B2G Roundtable. If you're east of the Rocky Mountains here in the US, good afternoon. Good morning to those out west. And hello to anyone else joining us from other far-flung corners of the earth or watching online in the future. Today is Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. This series is brought to you by MyGovWatch.com. MyGovWatch.com is revolutionizing traditional bid notification and matching by providing RFP leads in more than 200 industries using proprietary artificial intelligence at double the rate of free government sites and at a fraction of the cost of legacy websites. The site offers useful add-on services you can read about at MyGovWatch.com. Why settle for just the lead when you can have so much more? Start your 14-day free trial today. So today, our co-host with the co-most is the Federal Sales Sherpa, Eileen Kent. Hey, Eileen.
Hi, how are you doing, Nick? Great to be here.
Doing great, and thank you for joining us. So just a brief bio, folks. Eileen is president of Custom Keynotes. She is a sales strategist, national seminar leader, keynote speaker, and trainer. If you're one of her 10,000 plus students over the past 20 years, you know she's passionate about helping executives learn the game of how to win federal contracts. Eileen is taught all over the country with a focus as follows: educate the new, motivate the frustrated, and validate the experienced. And I've never heard that before. I love that. One claim to fame for Eileen is managing a national sales effort for a large roofing contractor, which captured over $65 million in American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funding in 2009 and 10. Eileen has built custom federal sales action plans through her three-step program for over 350 companies. The unique angle she brings to the classroom is real experience selling to the federal government, which includes her own personal stories in the field, including costly detours and how to avoid them yourself. So I'm just really curious about how you came up with all this, Eileen. I mean, tell us your story. How did you come up with the Federal Sales Sherpa? The word Sherpa, by the way, I love your use of that word. So how did all this happen?
Well, thank you very much for, first of all, inviting me and having me here. And hi, everybody. I am so excited about just sharing with you how I got into this business. I literally fell into it. I'm sure you kind of did too. All of us kind of trip, and we don't go through college going, I am going to sell to the federal government. That just isn't one of those things that you just have on your radar, right? I got my degree in broadcast journalism from Wayne State University in Detroit. And my first job actually was working as a public information officer, communications specialist for the city of Sterling Heights, which is just north of Warren, where the tank plant's located. So my job as a 25 to 31-year-old was to evacuate an entire city of people if something happened to that tank plant. So I took a lot of classes on emergency operations, a lot of that experience. Then I went into the IT world. So we're talking when everything was C:// when Steve Jobs was coming out with 1.0 Apple Macintosh, and all the computers were literally green screen. I was probably one of the first women in the business. So going from video over to IT, I sold IT in the early days for about 5 years. And then I jumped over here to Chicago. My high school sweetheart moved here, and I followed him out. And I took a left-hand turn in my career. A furniture rental company picked me up. I know that sounds kind of oddball, but if you can think of the late 90s when all the IT companies were getting their VC money, they would need 100 workstations overnight. So we would be hanging around all the VC money, companies getting all these VC, pets.com, and this and that and the other. And we would just be setting up offices all over the city. And then, staging homes for sale, that kind of business where you flip a home by furnishing it. We invented that business in the late 90s. Rent our furniture, flip a home. So we taught the real estate, and that became a real popular thing. So we were buzzing along, having a great time. And then 9/11 happened. And I was downtown Chicago in my showroom, and they announced that they were going to evacuate the Sears Tower, which was right next to us. So being an emergency operations trained person, I said to my team, we are not getting in our cars. We're not getting in public transportation. If we walk out of town, we'll be out of here in 5 minutes. And it's the fastest way to get out of here. So I walked my team and we literally, I'm not kidding you, I walked to Wrigley Field from downtown Chicago, which is 5 miles in my heels.
Wow.
And we left our lights on, our cars parked downtown, our doors unlocked, our computers on, we just split. And it was this mass exodus out of downtown Chicago. And as I was getting home, the owner of my company called me and he said, Eileen, the world is changing as we speak. I'd like you to go on the Lewis and Clark expedition and you're going to figure out for our company how to sell to the feds. So I got on a plane. I went to DC. I went to Atlanta. I went to LA. I went to San Francisco. I went to Las Vegas. I went to Dallas. And I went around and around 7 out of 8 weeks for a year, cold calling federal buildings all by myself with no training whatsoever. We called it the Lewis and Clark expedition. And my very first, the very first deal I got was I landed Homeland Security's very first 30 workstations. And they were in an undisclosed location in DC, and they blew out the headquarters of the Navy. So I got a new headquarters for the Navy, 3 floors with them. And so organically the business grew. So as I was selling, I got a chance, just like you did today, to go to see someone talk about selling to the feds and selling to Homeland Security. And the company was having this event and I begged my company to let me attend. So I went to the event. It was about 100 people in the room and they were talking about how it was a relationship sale, not a bidding war. And I raised my hand and told my story. I've been walking the halls of this country for a year. And yes, every deal that I've done has been in coffee shops, in back offices, and over the phone, closing deals left and right, no bidding, just getting the deals done. And that person that was teaching the class said, you know, Eileen, you're kind of fun. And I'm getting old and I don't want to teach this stuff anymore. Will you take over my training? So I built the Federal Sales Academy with him from 2003 to 2012. And that's when I was teaching federal sales, proposal writing, GSA schedule contracting for a company called FedMarket with the Federal Sales Academy. And the industry, so how did the Federal Sales Sherpa thing come? Somebody nicknamed me that. I am one of those street people that just, you know, I'm on the streets doing stuff and I'm like, Sherpa. So I look it up and I'm like, up the Himalayas for a year. That's what it feels like. So, and people started to come up to me at trade shows, Nick, and say, there's my Sherpa. There's my Sherpa. It started to stick. And from 2004 until now, I didn't come up with that name brand. The industry nicknamed me that and it stuck. So that's my brand. And as you said, a roofing company asked me to help their team of 48 locations during the American Recovery Act. While I was still training people, they had me part-time manage their federal sales activities. So I worked with them one-on-one for about 18 months and we captured about 65 million of those deals. So I got a lot of road stories. And then since 2012, I've been working with companies one-on-one with my own business. So that's a little bit of my story.
Well, that's fantastic. And we're going to get back to some of those anecdotes. Just a couple of notes, folks, while we get into the content here. If I spoke with you yesterday and you are on this session, we will get to you in the next hour and 20 minutes. If I did not speak with you and you would like us to cover something, we will get to you in the next hour and a half. There's always time in the last 15 or 20 minutes to cover questions that we did not discuss. Also, I encourage you to raise your hand to register that you're interested in asking a question. When I call on you, I'm going to ask that you turn on your audio and video and unmute yourself. Video is optional. It's always better if you let us have a peek, but that's not necessary, strictly speaking. Eileen's background being so laser focused in federal, we're going to have her take the lead on any questions involving the federal government. Certainly I have experience with federal issues, but also state and local, so I'll cover some of that as well. I know there's someone with us now who said that she may only be with us for the first 20 or 30 minutes. So I'm wondering, Suzette Palmer, if you can join us. So I'm just going to allow you to speak, Suzette. And let's see if I can have you join us here.
Nick, thanks so much.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
Suzette.
All right,
Hi, Eileen.
let me just promote you and welcome, Suzette. And you can turn on your video or not. So where are you calling from? What do you do and how do you do it?
Okay, I thought I was losing you guys there for a minute. Everything went batty on me. So
Sound great.
I'm not going to start my video only because I am in the mountains and I've been having we've had a lot of weather issues lately and the internet's just not very strong. So
Totally up to you.
if I start streaming, you guys are going to lose me audio wise. So, yes. So Eileen, what a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really, inspiring. And I'm really interested in hearing about tips and tricks for state and local government.
Okay. And where are you selling and what are you selling, Suzette?
So I cover the states of Tennessee and Kentucky, and I sell IT solutions primarily around end user computing, but it does expand the full IT stack with security and networking and you name it. I'm not real technical, but I've got the basics. I got
Sure.
guys that are.
And does your company do any government contracting now, federally, state or local?
So we have started a Zentegra Gov division. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to say the company name. And
By the way, feel free to say your company's name. If you don't want to tell people what you're doing, that's fine too. But this is intended to be a promotional format, not just for Eileen and I, but for you as well.
Right.
Thank you so much. So yes, so my company, started a government division that is focused on state, local, and education. While I'm not a part of that division, my territory is really limited with Tennessee and Kentucky. So I still have the option to go after state and local business. And if I get there before the gov counterpart does, I get to keep it. So that's why I'm asking tips and tricks. It's been a few years since I've done any state and local. I've done quite a bit of federal, but pretty limited in the last few years, and everything changes in the government on a regular basis. They're almost like dealing with Microsoft, So I'm just wondering tips and tricks.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this question. For the products and services that you sell, without telling us the specific products or services, what would be like an annual spend for a certain product or service that you sell?
It depends on the size of organization.
Have products and services that you sell below $50,000?
I do. I prefer not to, but I can.
Okay. So I'm going to give you your first tip. Every state has a purchasing threshold above which the buyer is required to have an open bid process. And because we were going to be talking to you this morning or this afternoon, Suzette, I looked it up in Tennessee. Looks like in Tennessee, they just raised it to $50,000 last year. So what that means is that if you are selling something below $50,000, they do not need to do a formal bid process. Now they may need to get 3 quotes, but it will start to feel like a traditional sale if you identify a need and find the right people who you can sell a solution for that need. Does that make sense?
It makes awesome sense. Thank you.
Okay. And so now you may find that in Kentucky, the purchasing threshold is a little bit different. So I just wanted to make you aware of that concept up front, because a lot of people may make the mistake of assuming that they're just bidding on RFPs. And Eileen's going to get into that a little bit later and why you shouldn't always just bid blindly on RFPs. But one of the best ways to get a toehold in government contracting is to start small. And if you can sell a solution, a product or a service below the threshold, the government buyer has a lot of leeway to make purchases. Even at lower levels, they may only have to tell one person they're doing it if it's below a certain amount. And now you have a reference. And having a reference is a tremendously valuable thing in government, because you may not realize it, but if you have, let's say, a county reference, that's going to help you with the state. And if you have a state reference, that's going to help you with the federal government. And Eileen, did you have anything to add to that? Because some of these ideas cross over into the federal space as well.
Absolutely. But I think the state and local question is a good one. So I want to stick in there just because I think it's really specific. There's really nothing wrong with walking in the door or going to their website and finding their IT people. It's probably not going to be on the state sites. It's not that difficult to find end users. So just like in federal, try to find those end users and let them know how you can help them in a pinch. And if it's in a pinch under 50 grand, boom. I mean, you can get some deals and get some relationship. Then you've got enough mini past performances that once they have a bigger bid that they say you must have done business with us before, that you have some past performance. I have a saying about some of those small deals that Nick was talking about. Have you ever heard of the Navy's term for the knot that they throw to put onto the, when they bring in a ship or a yacht, they've got the little rope with the knot and they fling it over the pole, to pull in. They call that the monkey's paw. Okay. That little teeny loop. Okay. I want you to think of those small deals, so Suzette, as the monkey's paw. You got them. And then from other mods, you can pull in the whole ship,
Nice.
Wow. Okay.
Very
so
cool.
Going for those little deals. So I have a quick little quick little field story for those of you who have state and local, interest. I was calling on the state of Colorado. I was just going to be doing a training there. And I decided I got there a day early. I thought, I'm in Denver. Why don't I just kind of walk around the state, see what's going on? I walked into the state capitol. Nobody stopped me. I walked into the governor's office. Nobody stopped me. I said, purchasing? And they said, oh yeah, it's over in this other building. So I walked over to purchasing. I'm just wondering, I have no reason to be there other than to just figure out stuff at the state just for fun, because I had nothing else to do that day because the next day was my training. So I walked over to contracting and it was lunchtime. I'm walking through a sea of workstations. Nobody's there. And then one head pops up. May I help you? I said, yeah, the governor's office sent me over here. I just wanted to find out, I teach a class on, selling to the feds and selling to state and local, and was just wondering, do you guys have a list of contracting officers or anything? He goes, oh yeah. And they had this little line, this arrow that you followed, and it said, put your bids here. And it was a basket. And they had a list on all of everybody, and I took a picture of it, right? So then I said, well, is there anybody else around here that I should be talking to? And they said, yeah, go over to this other building, go to the 7th floor and see the small business officer. Now, you and I both know those small business officers are really good gatekeepers. So I'm like, okay, here we go, So I walk over to the building, walk up to security, and I said, small business office? And he goes, step right up. No ID, no nothing. Up the elevator I go. I get right to the door of the small business office, and it's locked. The only door at the entire state that's locked is the small business office. So I knock on the door, and this lady opens it. She's pretty intense. Yes. And I'm like, I'm looking for the small business officer. And she said, do you have an appointment? And I said, no, just walking around and asking. And she goes, he's not here. Give me your card. And I'm like, well, just tell him that, I'm teaching a class and I'm not, I just wanted to find out people buy from you. So she goes, oh, give me your card. So I just kind of walked down the stairs, a little defeated, although I got the list of the contracting officers already, So I'm walking along and I'm right in front of the Capitol. My cell phone rings. Hello. And this guy goes, Eileen. Yes. He goes, where are you right now? And I said, standing in front of the Capitol. And he said, I'm going to run down the stairs and I'll meet you on the street. You can't miss me because I have a checkered jacket. And sure enough, this guy's running down the street toward me with a colored jacket like this, but it's checked, Suzette.
Oh my
He
God.
runs up to me and he goes, "Hey, Eileen, let's go have some coffee." I go, "Can we do that?" He goes, "I buy mine, you buy yours." Okay. And he told me just what Nick said. You can walk the halls of our whole state and sell to anybody 25K or less. After that, it's a bid, but it's going to be up to your clients to be able to make those relationships at the agency by agency level, at the office that would need them. And as you can see, we're pretty open offices, except for me. And I said, "Yeah, your gatekeeper." He goes, "Yeah, isn't she good?" I'm like, "Man, she's great." And he goes, "No, just walk the halls and tell your people, you got the list of the contracting on." "Yeah, I already found them." And he said, "Tell them to call me anytime and mention you." So what I'm saying, Suzette, sometimes, and I know even in a pandemic, it seems weird, but this is your backyard. If you're driving by, go be a tourist. Go be a taxpayer lost in your state building, in your county building, in your city building. And I bet people will point you in the right direction to the office you're looking for. So you can just have a normal face-to-face with these people. They're your backyard. Go for it.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you.
And
Thank
Suzette,
you
I
very
would
much.
also, I would also add, just talking out of the other side of my mouth, we have over 1,300 open RFPs in the IT space right now on MyGovWatch. So, that's just something to consider as well. So, Suzette, do you have any follow-up questions?
I don't. This was super informative. Thank you so much.
Well, stay with us as long as you can. And if you want
I
to raise
will.
something later, we'll come back to you.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Suzette. And
Thank you,
so
Eileen.
we have someone else that I spoke with yesterday. I'm going to ask if Mario Cunningham can join us. And I realize I'm putting some of you folks on the spot, but I'm just going to call on you if I know you're here and ask you to join us. So we'll just give Mario a moment.
Mario, you need to unmute yourself.
And what we'll do, Mario, we're going to come back to you. Maybe you're just not at your station now. So, Eileen, let me ask you this, because people have, lots of different ideas about how long the sales cycle should take, and it may be different on the private side versus the federal side. We get lots of different answers to this, but how long does it take, or what would be your advice for how long it takes to get a good sized federal contract?
Yeah. 1 to 2 years, 365 to 730 days. People will tell you out in the marketplace contracts in days, and I'm telling you now, at least 365. If you're an IT company, they're already working with someone else on a contract for a certain time period. So they have to kind of stick with that contract for a while. So you're either going to need to team with the current incumbent that's already there, or you're going to have to sell to that agency. And when that bid comes out, then you got to go head to head against them. So it's like getting your customer. It's like a customer you're trying to woo and they're already married to someone else. Even if it's a turnaround sale, like in furniture rental, I got to tell you, I was in a business that was nobody budgeted for furniture rental. Why would they? Who wants to rent furniture? Furniture is only rented when there's an emergency of some sort, right? So I had to get my name out there saying, I know I represent, it's like being an ambulance driver. I know you're going to have a heart attack, but when you do, call me. It's kind of, when you have an emergency for furniture, if you have a fire or a flood, call me. So it's not the most fun sales call to make because you're trying to predict where the next disaster would be or whatever. So what you need to start thinking about right now is who are the people that would be experiencing pain without my services or products. And if you can start to think about that, who is in pain and how does that pain feel? How does that pain feel? And if you can emulate that and start to realize, goodness gracious, I offer, let's say, for example, I offer cybersecurity. And if they're not secure and they get broken into, or, their finances, things could go terribly, terribly wrong for them. And then you start to feel for these people. Now you suddenly have a mission. I got to find the people in pain without my services. And if they already have someone, my fastest comeback is, I already have someone. Well, you need a backup, right? And they'll say, I have backup. Well, you always need 3 bids. So why not let me be your backup to the backup? Put my name in your phone. So the idea here is you've got to get the word out. And the people that they're used to calling, there's going to be a moment where that other company is not going to be available. They don't have the solution. They're not doing a good job. And they go, you know what? Forget you. I'm going to call the person that's been touching base with me. But this takes time, and it takes 12 to 24 impressions. What do I mean by that? It could be a phone call every week, 12 weeks. It could be a phone call and some emails. It could be some impressions on LinkedIn. Think about 12 to 24 impressions that you can make before they start to go, oh, you know what? That person's a subject matter expert. I'm going to talk to them about XYZ. So if you do it once a month, it's going to take you 24 months. So think about the number of impressions you're going to make on those key people that you're going to talk to. And then the idea is going to be uncovering pain or being there when they need it. And you're helping to give them feedback, but they're currently using somebody else's solution. So we got to get them away from them, or to back them up, or to support that current vendor that they're using. It's going to take 1 to 2 years.
A lot of people may not understand that, sometimes that length of that cycle can just be different than in the private sector. So that's useful to know. We have someone else joining us. I'm going to ask Carol to unmute. Hello,
Hi.
Carol.
Hi, Eileen. Hi, Nick. It was nice. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome, welcome. And Carol, where are you calling from? What's your company and what do you do?
I'm in the Detroit, Michigan area. I'm in Novi, Michigan. Our company is called National Diagnostics. We have several specialties, but right now what we provide is healthcare screening for fire departments because they're exposed to carcinogenics every day at their job. Their uniforms are carcinogenic. They need cancer screenings, and the cities are slow to take. They all are interested in it, but they have budgets. And I've had every firefighter wants this. There's definitely pain and there's need, but it's getting through the cities to get them to make a decision. And I don't know how to increase the velocity of closing. And this is obviously on a state level, not a federal level. We work with cities in 33 different states. And it's just so difficult.
Now, that's a challenge. Well, first of all, you have a mission to save people's lives before. I mean, think of all the firefighters that were affected during 9/11, from the after effects of 9/11. So people know that this is critically important to know their families. And these are people that are giving service for 40 years. So they deserve this testing, don't they? So
Absolutely.
You've got a mission. By the way, I know what Novi means, number 6. So it was pre-stop number 6. I'm a Michigander.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things to think about. Have you thought about, and I'm just throwing it out there, have you thought about the firefighters that are at the bases and the airports? Those might be some federal level people in firefighting and rescue, and also in the fire and rescue of the Department of Interior. Wouldn't it be, Nick, for the fire, the Forestry Service that hires all those firefighters that have to respond to the fires in California? So they have a huge workforce that's a temporary workforce that they call on. So I would say federally, some quick places to go is take a look at your local, just in your own backyard, your local bases. You got Selfridge, which I went to check. My father was My family members were married and receptions at Selfridge. So you got Selfridge. You also have down in Indiana, you've got Crane, which is a huge naval base that's very, very important. And you have Great Lakes Naval Base here in the Chicagoland area, which also piggybacks. They do a lot of training here, Carol. They actually they have one of those facilities that they have here in Illinois for Great Lakes Naval Base training. It's like a Disney ride. It's a building that's the inside of a ship that they recreate the ship on fire and they put it out. So there's a lot of fire training coming out of Great Lakes Naval Base. So I would think of the fire and the MP areas of every base. That could be an area that the feds might take more personally and get on it. I would also reach out to the VAs because there might be some testing that you offer or outreach testing for, sometimes they have traveling vans and trucks and stuff like that that go out to the outlying areas for MRIs and stuff. So those kind of people could offer the testing that you offer. But
we do that too. We go out in trucks and go to sites.
Great. That's great. So what we need to do is you need to treat this like a mission and watch out world. I have just a quick example. I have a woman right now that just started working with me about a year ago, Carol. They do DNA testing that's 90% accurate, 7 cells, and they are able to identify Jane and John Does, and they're able to identify a murderer from a fingerprint now, the DNA from a fingerprint. Now, this woman came to me a year ago and said, this is what we've got. Nobody else has it in North America. And she had to change the law in Congress because the FBI was using another DNA test that was only 10% accurate and 20 years old. So she walked the halls of Congress to get the law changed, and she landed over $100 million in grant money. So I want you to look at grants.gov and look at what the state and locals are able to apply for. Maybe there might be some health testing grant money that the state and locals can apply for, and you can be the testing person because that's where she's hitting her success rate. Each of her DNA tests are $5,000. Wow. So, and she's clearing 3 cold cases a week now. So she's kicking it, but she started at 0, just building this lab. So you have something that's newsworthy. By the way, she took it to the Today Show. She's on Dateline NBC. She's on all these shows. So you need to make this newsworthy and challenge the cities to get their firefighters tested. Because we all know in the public what 9/11 did to the firefighters. And if we can take care of our own, I think that if you make it newsworthy enough, cities will come to you.
All right, thank you.
So Carol, thank you for joining us. Folks, I just want to say we have about a dozen more people that we promised that we would get to. So Carol, I would just ask, please stay with us if you can, and please join us again towards the end if you'd like to do some follow-up. And then we're going to be giving out certainly Eileen's contact information. I don't have anything to add to that answer, which I think is fantastic.
Just go get them, Carol. This
Thank
is
you very much, Eileen.
Start with Chicago, by the way.
Okay.
Come to Chicago, take care of our firefighters here.
No problem. I'll do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Carol. So the next person we have is Joe Gallagher, and Joe, were you able to unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Joe.
Yes, Joe, welcome. And I think I spoke with your partner yesterday.
Yeah, Mark. Yep. Yeah, he sent me. He couldn't join today, so.
Well, Joe, thank you for joining us. Can you just tell all of us out here, what do you do and what is your company and where are you joining us from?
Sure, yeah. So company is Ignite IPA. IPA stands for Intelligent Process Automation. I'm based just outside of Richmond, but we've got individuals across the U.S. as well as across the globe as part of the company. And essentially what we do is process automation. So what we do, this isn't the kind of automation that you would have in like a factory, robotics, like physical automation, right? But it's process automation software that gets installed onto a user's PC. And it helps to automate tasks that people, would historically perform on these computers. So think of just very, routine, mundane types of activities, like maybe copying data from one system to another, or processing invoices, and taking the data from those invoices and putting them into a back-end accounting platform, so that there can be some sort of a trigger of a payment, processing payments, things like that. So what we do as an organization is, we help those that we're engaging with essentially install these software components and build these or configure these automations to be able to allow people to focus in on more valuable activities instead of just, clicking the F2 button all day long to cycle through different types of maybe screens on a computer.
And your client base now, is it almost exclusively private, or are you doing any government contracting?
Yeah, so it's pretty much exclusively private. So we have had one state university that we worked with in the past a couple of years ago, but other than that, pretty much exclusively private. And yeah, we're really trying to figure out how to break in, how to get into the government space here.
Well, as luck would have it, we at MyGovWatch may use some automation tools to aggregate some of our data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's interesting, and what we're really talking about here is adoption of technology. And Eileen can speak to this, but certainly there are some things where the government is leading the rest of the world in uses of different technologies. Certainly on the defense side, and things come to us in the private sector from that direction. But there's also a dynamic where you really have to teach them why they even need to look at something. Is that something you're seeing in your normal sales routine? Are you seeing that people are not understanding the benefits, or what do you think the challenges are for you selling into the government?
Yes, I mean, I think to answer the first part of the question, it is something that we see. So I think a lot of what we do is initially educational, right? So it's helping people understand not only what these technologies are, but forget about the technology, like how can you become more efficient, within your day-to-day operations, and then how does a technology platform support you in that? So there's definitely a lot of education that occurs as a part of our sale on the private side. As far as the government side, I would say I'd assume it's going to be the same, if not even more so on the educational side, as to where can you use these different types of technologies. It does kind of require some assistance, I'll say, in kind of navigating the waters, because there's like a million, right, different types of technology vendors. How do you really know where those capabilities are supposed to fit? That's part of the challenge.
Right.
So Eileen, I'm going to ask you to please, comment heavily on this, but I would think that part of what Joe needs to hear about is bundling of IT requirements. Joe, did I hear from your partner that you have a GSA contract?
We're going through the process right now, so it's not quite completed yet, but we're in the throes of going through that process now.
Eileen, do you want to take this, and then I'll chime in if needed?
Yes. Love to take it. I have multiple clients that do what you do. So I get your messaging, and I understand what your challenges will be as you walk into this marketplace. One of the things that I highly recommend is we look at the history and some of the data of who buys what you sell. And it might not be searches for RPA, machine learning, AI. It might be massive staffing for administrative people. And the idea is, if they don't want to spend the millions and millions and millions on, 500 people to be entering in data, that you could come in and create a program to do that kind of work and get it done in less than 6 months, possibly. So there's some angles that I would highly recommend. I'm glad you're on your way to getting your GSA schedule. Now, I could talk about GSA schedules all day, but the one thing is Schedules are very popular to use in the realm of IT. I don't recommend GSA schedules for everybody. We have to let a data analysis look at how they buy what you sell to guarantee the understanding of who uses GSA and who doesn't. So for example, you might get your GSA schedule and you go in to see a client and you say, I'd really like to work with you because I see you're doing a lot of staffing here. And we have this capability that we'd like to educate you on how you can save, butts and seats by doing this process, through automation. Let's give you some training on that, right? And then they say, great, do you have an 8A Stars 3? Do you have an Oasis? Do you have, these are other contract vehicles out there? Are you on SOUP? Are you on Seaport NXG? There are all these different contract vehicles besides the GSA schedule that they might prefer. So what we also need to think about, besides getting in front of customers and educating them on how much time and money and face, because of the accuracy, they'll save by automating their processes. But we also need to understand how they buy things. And if it's a GSA schedule, we'll have one. But if they're using another contract vehicle, we need a teaming partner who does, so that we can quickly pivot and bring that opportunity across. So some of this might take a little training for you to be able to understand the language, A, the contract vehicles they prefer to use, B, finding out exactly what agencies buy what you sell or might be potential targets for what you need to sell. So then you go in and educate. So let me give you a quick example, just a quick example. It's not exactly in your business. So when I was in roofing, the president was getting on rooftops saying, in the next 18 months, I want to see green, solar, and cool roofs for every single construction project. And every project manager in the country went, because they were like, I don't know if my buildings can handle the weight of green, trees on our roof. I don't know if we can afford solar. All the project managers panicked, right? So what I did is we started to do a tour training the project managers environmental solutions on the roof. We taught them what they were, what to look for, what to ask for what kind of roofs. And then they invited us on those rooftops to give them feedback. So the idea that you have of educating people first is brilliant. And one of the things I want you to think about is trainings and white papers about how can you save $500,000 by not hiring 10 people to do the same data entry. To come up with a dollar amount and an accuracy amount, and then talk about the technology of AI. The people that are going to care about that are the HR people that don't have to go and hire those people. But this is the roadblock you're going to run into. What if they have people on site that will lose their jobs because of your technology? That's what some of these people are running into a little bit. So what you need to do is say, we can graduate these people to more savvy positions where they have to double check the work or look at the quality of the work or do specialty work over here. But the repetitive stuff, let us take care of so you can get to the juicy part of your job, which is decision making and custom work that you like to do. So a couple things to think about. I love the idea of educating people and writing white papers about how you can save them time and money and how you've done that for other people. Number two, thinking about not only GSA schedule, I want you to brace yourself because they use other contract vehicles to buy what you sell too. So you need to be ready to understand what those are and have teaming partners lined up so that you can borrow theirs if you don't have one. And number three, again, you're going to be changing some mindsets. This AI machine learning RPA is moving slowly. I can tell you the IRS is all over it. They love it. So there's a couple of agencies that are jumping on it and a couple agencies that are a little slow to market.
Joe, let me ask you this question. Have you looked up whether or not your business is a small business in federal parlance in your NAICS code or codes?
I haven't. I would assume that we would be.
So
I haven't looked it up. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're under 32 million, you should be. if you're in
Right.
IT.
Yeah, so we would be.
You would be a small business?
Mhm.
So I would, and just to sort of add on footnotes to what Eileen said, I would look into the concepts of federal subcontracting. If you're a small business, any of these large government contracts have small business subcontracting requirements. So that is more of a private sale, right? Where you can get in with a relationship if there's a need. I would look into some of the terms of art that Eileen mentioned, such as teaming arrangements. And really understand, are you only in one NAICS code? And maybe you are, maybe you aren't, because whether or not you're a small business will change depending on the NAICS code. But those are just some things that you might want to look into on top of what Eileen mentioned, which was pretty comprehensive.
Just a quick
Oh, cool.
thought on that too, that I want to say to everybody. You might have a contract vehicle, which makes it easy for them to buy from you, like a GSA schedule. You might have a set aside, like woman-owned, hub zone, 8A, service disabled vet, small business. I want to say this with all my heart. Lead with your capabilities, close with your contract vehicles and set asides. Don't go in saying, I'm a small business, work with me. Go in there talking about how your AI, machine learning, and RPA system is rocking it over at blah, blah, blah college and blah, blah, blah company, and that they've got to see what you've done and what you could do for them. Get them interested in what your capabilities are, then close the deal with your set asides and your contract vehicles.
Very well said, Eileen. And Joe, I encourage you to stay with us, ask any follow-up questions as we get further into the rest of the session. And you'll have Eileen's contact information towards the end here.
Thanks.
Fantastic. And Eileen, just a question while we try to see who else is with us, who promised to be with us this afternoon. If you were going after federal business now with the data available, what would you do?
Great question. So this is probably what when people say, Eileen, I want to pick your brain. Where do I begin? You don't have to go on the Lewis and Clark expedition like I did. I spent over $70,000 in travel that first year, walking the halls in those different cities. And I have lots of funny stories about that. But right now, what you can do is you can get your hands on the data that's available in sam.gov. There's a section called contract data. Now, it's a little bit specialized, but if you figure out how to run the ad hoc report, I have a training on how to do that. But if you are able to run an ad hoc report based on company names or keywords or NAICS codes or set asides, you can pull such detailed intelligence that you can find out every contract with your keyword in it. For example, Joe's company, RPA. I could go in there and put in RPA as a keyword, and I would be able to see every transaction for the last 5 years with those letters in it and filter it out. And I'm able, for my own ad hoc report, I'm able to see who the department was, the agency, the contracting office, the approved by person, the person's name tied to that contract, when it was bid last, when it's coming to an end, how many bidders they had last time, how they bid it, whether it was GSA or some other contract vehicle, or they posted it on SAM. I can see who the vendor was they awarded it to and whether or not that vendor's small, woman-owned, hub zone 8A. I can see how much that contract is. I can see when it's coming to an end, and I can see what the total worth of that contract is. So for example, so if it's a 5-year contract and they awarded $100,000 for the first year, and they show that it's a $5 million contract, the potential there is up to $5 million. So what that allows me to do, instead of traveling and asking everybody who you working with, what contract vehicles do you prefer? I pull the data right to my desktop, and I'm able to say, here's who buys what I sell. Here's who I need to go talk to first. And then these are the teaming partners I need to find. And here are the contract vehicles that I need to get. So I'm able to create a federal sales action plan against the contract data that's available to me. I don't have to spend the year looking for people and interviewing and asking the basic questions. Like I've been told in the field, hey, who are you working with? The usual suspects are saying to me. And what does that say? Do your homework, Eileen. Get back in the data and read who I work with. It's available. I spent, 20 hours putting that data in. A lot of those project managers have to put the data into the system, and they want us to find it and read it and ask probing questions about the research we did. So then my approach, Nick, at that point would be, once I isolate the 4 or 5 locations I'm going to focus on for the next year, I'm going to put myself in the position of an investigative reporter. Instead of in this sales position, hi, buy from me. I'm going to find out, I understand you're working with these 3 vendors on this contract vehicle. It's coming to an end in 6 months. Are you going to recompete it there? Are you going to open it up to people like me? Should I team with them or should I work directly with you? What do you think of those guys? Are they good? Try to get the field intel and compare it to what's in the data so that you have a good picture for what's really happening before you write a single bid. I want you to do your homework. Talk to people. Once you do your homework, verify it in the field. Then make sure it's your agency. Convince them that your technology is better than the other. You have a more innovative solution. And then they start asking for your solution in the bids. Those are your bids. So homework, do your research, find out who buys what you sell and who's buying from your top 5 competitors. You can do data analysis based on keywords, company names, NAICS codes, set-asides, particular agencies, particular people within the agencies. You can see who buys what you sell. And so the research needs to happen right now. That's what I would do first.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think it's lost on some people that there really is 2 sides to the coin, right? So there's data that's available publicly, right? And a lot of people don't have a lot of clarity on what is available and what can you know if you just simply knew where to look for it. And that's only part of the equation, because then, as you say, you really have to do some of the touchy-feely stuff, the old-fashioned way, in order to really find out or to augment what the data can tell you. And I think that's an important point for anyone who may be joining us today or watching later.
Yes, you need to light up your leads. Light up your leads. And what I mean by that is the first couple calls, they're going to be cold because they don't know if you're a vendor that's going to be kind and understanding or questioning every little thing they do. So at first, they're very guarded, right? But once you start to warm them up a little bit, just like when we came into this room, everyone's just kind of like, ooh, what's going to happen? Now we're starting to warm up and get to know each other. Stories start to come out, people, family stories start to come out. You get to know them as a person. You find out they went on vacation and you follow up. Like when I was first selling to the feds, and we'll tell some stories later, but just a real quick one. When I was first selling to the feds, it was wintertime. And every time I went to DC, it snowed. Nick, it snowed. So every time I would go to DC and I would call on my clients, they go, no, come see me. You're going to bring that Chicago snow with you. Even in the summertime, we joke about it. So eventually you're going to have running jokes. You're going to have favorite foods. You're going to have great restaurants that you know, or sports teams that you love. They start to animate and be human beings. And that's when the magic starts to happen. They start to talk to you.
Well, and that's what we're here to talk more about, magic. And we know that Todd Flessner is interested in talking about some magic. So Todd, you're with us. Tell us where you're joining us from today. What do you do and what would you like to talk about?
Okay, well, Eileen and Nick, thank you. My name is Todd Flessner. I work for a firm called CBiz, CBIZ, and I'm in the Chicago area, but we're a national firm. And I'm in the retirement practice, and we provide pension administration solutions to government pension funds at the state, county, local level, public safety. Just to kind of clarify what exactly pension administration is, it's for defined benefit plans, where the benefits calculated by a formula. So it's not like a 401k or a 403b plan, that's based on how much you contribute. But what pension administration is in a nutshell is doing pension calculations for members of the pension fund, either to help them plan for retirement or when they're ready to start their pension. And then after they've made their election of their how they want to receive their pension benefit, it's initiating those pension payments when they retire, maintaining their information while they're retired, change of address, tax changes, banking changes, and then stopping their payments when they die. So we literally keep track of people from the day they're hired at an organization to the day they die. There's a lot of data maintenance involved. We need all their employment history and salary history and all their hours, job classification, things like that. So there's a lot of technical aspects to it. So that's what pension administration is. So what do? We do two things. We provide pension administration software to pension funds so that they can realize higher automation and more efficiency and less risk and less manual work in the administration of their plan. And so we'll license our software to them that we've customized to meet the provisions of their pension plan. So that's the software side of it. And then we provide, system support. On the service side, corporate America has been outsourcing pension administration to firms like ours for over 30 years. And just in the last 10 years, we've started to see government entities, primarily smaller and mid-sized ones at the local and municipal and public safety level, begin to outsource some pension administration work to a third party like us. So, they may want to maintain the member interaction, meeting with members before they retire or whatnot, but then delegate all the back office stuff to us. If they want to outsource or delegate to us the customer service aspect, we'll set up a call center and staff a team of administrators and analysts to do all the pension administration on their behalf. So we provide the full range of services to government pension funds.
So
Great.
to what extent?
Got it.
To what extent, Todd, is this kind of service a commodity where they're picking based on price? And to what extent is it a best value scenario where it's more than just price?
Well, certainly price plays into a decent amount of deals because they are budget minded, especially the smaller the pension fund, the more important budget is. But price point comes into play. So does functionality. Certainly what we offer is, there's a lot of aspects of what we do that is a commodity amongst, our industry with our competitors. But we like to focus on some of the differentiators that we offer in terms of either functionality or capability as an organization or functionality of our software.
What's your question about contracting?
Well, in the government space, it seems like especially with pension funds, access to the decision makers is the toughest point, right? Responding to an RFP blind when you're not a known quantity is a tough road. That's an uphill battle. So getting out there and trying to become a known quantity before they go to RFP, or either develop that relationship with them and try to shortcut an RFP. We've had some success that way too, but that's a lot of work. You got to knock on a lot of doors before you get a couple to open that way. And one of the ways we've found to get access to decision makers and pension board trustees of government pension funds is to attend various public pension conferences. But a lot of times the focus of those conferences is for trustee education, and they're not really in the mood to be sold to there. And so it's really, trying to have the discipline or try to find the contact information of some of these people so you can follow up with them, which is not always as easy as you think. What are some pointers on, how you think, someone might penetrate and get into the inner circle there with, government pension funds?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you mentioned that this is a relatively recent phenomenon. So if the government's only been outsourcing something less than 10 years, as you say, isn't that what you said? Maybe this is a trend where they're doing it in the last 10 years or so?
Yes.
Okay, so that is an emerging market in government, right? So anything within 10 years is certainly still emerging.
Yeah, it is.
I would say this is not a silver bullet, but this is something I know Eileen knows all about this, but I'm just going to throw it out there. There's not always an easy way to get the data portion, right? So if we talk about the coin, there's the data and what you can know through public sources, and then there's the relationship stuff that's very important. There's not always a good data source in different states and different localities, but the silver bullet there is open records requests. And for anyone who's not familiar with that concept, you're able to obtain in almost every state, if there is an existing contract, especially if it's a recurring contract, this has value and these are recurring contracts. You can say, if you contact the right person, I'd like a copy of the contract. I'd like a copy of the evaluation documents that were created as a part of the review process for bids. I'd like a copy of any document that shows all the prices that everyone submitted. I'd like a list of all of the bidders. And by the way, while you're at it, send me a copy of the winning proposal from 2 years ago. And so that is something that we offer on the MyGovWatch website. So we do on-demand FOIA fulfillment for things like that. So you could develop an entire strategy. By the way, you can use us for that. You don't have to. You could develop an entire strategy around identifying who has these contracts in place now and doing open records requests or offloading that to a company like ours. And you can learn what's in those documents. And oftentimes those documents will have very detailed notes of who actually reviewed the RFP responses. So the people that you're meeting at the conferences are conceivably the people who reviewed the bids from 2 years ago, and they will probably be there in 3 years when it goes back out to bid again. So that is something that I would encourage you strongly to consider. Eileen, anything to add to that?
Yes, I was that public information officer. I would have Nick do it for you. Don't you do it and tie your company to it. Have Nick do it for you. Meanwhile, you do your own research at those state and local agency websites. Find HR, find benefits manager. There's staff directories at almost every state and local government. I've seen them for myself. And if you can't find it, call the FOIA person, the PR person, because when I worked inside government, I was the one who managed the phone book. Hey, Eileen, I have a really great benefits management system. I was wondering if you could point me over to the benefits management officer, and I would connect you immediately because that's also FOIA requested. You asked me for the person who manages the benefits management. So I would connect you with them. And if they yell at me, I'd say, FOIA, talk to the hand. I'd rather point you to a person than do a bunch of homework and copies and stuff. Let Nick do that for you. I'm pointing at the right. Nick, you're to my right. So I'm doing the, but I would have Nick do it for you anonymously. Okay. And then you do your homework specifically to find the benefits managers and talk to them because they're the ones doing that work every day. And I got to tell you, changing benefits is personal to them. Everything to the federal or local or state government employee, their benefits are the whole reason why they're staying there. So It's everything to them, and any changes just creates a ripple effect. So you got to go in there understanding that it's like, if I find that when facility managers, for example, when they choose a chair for everybody, they bring in every chair in the industry and make everybody sit on them and vote because they don't want to hear about it for the next 10 years that they don't like their chairs. Same thing with their benefits. If they're going to change anything for the benefits, they got to make sure everybody's on board. So it does take time, and it does take penetrating, and it does take talking to the benefits manager, the HR director, the trustees. I'm working with another company just like yours right now doing the same thing. And we're struggling with the same stuff. So I'm just saying you're going to have to target either the size of the state and locals that you're focusing on, 50 employees to 500 or 250 to this, then zoom in on the ones that are closest to you physically that you can walk the halls and talk to people, and then work your way out. and like I said, work with Nick on the FOIA request. I love FOIA requesting, but I was that person. And if someone asked me, I'm just saying, Nick, I've taken this call and I shared an office with purchasing, and I would get the call for a FOIA request for a copy of the winning bid. And this was my conversation, honest to God, Nick. Hey, Donna. Yeah, Eileen, I got another loser who wants a copy of the winning bid. Who is it this time? That's why you want to do it anonymously. Have Nick do it for you so that he can get the information for you while you're working relationships. Work the relationships. And it's not that difficult to find the benefits managers and the trustee names on a city, state, or local government website. Or call the main number, ask for the PR person or the FOIA person. Say, who would you call if you were me? She's managing the phone book. I got into the Capitol by calling the media relations person who wrote a press release about the superintendent who saved the Capitol after 9/11. Did you know the Capitol needed saving after 9/11? Did you know that? It did. It needed saving because it was being eaten by termites. And the story was the Capitol's being eaten by termites, and William Pisagno saved the Capitol. He did not. Orkin probably did, right? So I saw this press release. I call the PR person. I'm reading your press release. And this is how you get the FOIA person's attention. You read my stuff? Because they're a journalism person. And then, yeah, and I'm reading about William Pisagno, who's the superintendent. And, oh, yeah, Billy. Yeah, Billy. And she goes, you want to talk to him? Connect. Billy here. Billy, that fast. Billy, I heard you saved the Capitol. Sure did. Well, I want to meet the man who saved the Capitol. He goes, well, you can't come in. And I said, well, how am I going to meet you? He said, you'll have to meet me at Capitol South, which is a train stop next to the Capitol. And I met him there, and he walked me into the Capitol and gave me a full tour. And he showed me all the designs on how they were going to update the dome and the visitor center. So that started by calling the FOIA director, reading her press releases. So go to the state or local website, go to their press release and media or their phone book. If you can't find the benefits manager, call them for more information. And that person is the emergency operations person for that communications person. And they know everybody in that city. That's their job. And if you're going to make my pension better and easier to use and more cost effective, I'm going to connect you to the benefits manager. So that's my approach, is use Nick to do the FOIA-ing for you. Always hire someone else to do that for you, but you work the relationships.
That's very helpful. It kind of reaffirms what we're trying to do, but gives me some more specifics. So thank you very much.
And Todd, something tells me that we'll be in touch. I didn't mention the anonymity. Eileen, thank you for the plug, but certainly the anonymity is a huge part of it. So Todd, please stay with us. And if we don't hear from you again in the next half hour, I'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So the next person we'd like to join us is Ed Casenti. Ed, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
And Ed, you can choose to join with video or not.
Yeah, well, you're going to like this video because I'm in a peculiar spot, but that's okay.
We have just your t-shirt. We have you from the chin down, and that's just fine by us. I'm just letting
well, I had a problem with my regular computer, and I had to leave. And come back, and I'm on another computer. And this one's not so good, but whatever. Anyway, you got me from the chin down. It's probably better than seeing me higher, but maybe that's a little better. I don't see myself.
That's okay.
There I see myself.
I like your t-shirt. You're rocking.
Yeah, I'm rocking. I wish I was doing more of that, unless it is. Excuse the expression.
Well, Ed, thank you for joining us. I know, we spoke briefly yesterday. Just for anyone who may be still with us, what do you do and where are you joining us from, and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I'm in New York, out on Long Island. We have office in Manhattan, but we're headquartered in Virginia. I've been doing work with PSI International since 2009. But PSI has been around since 1977. very, very heavy in federal business from 1977 up until the 90s. And we started as a small business way before I was there. And we eventually graduated to a large business. And everybody's saying, man, that's great. Not so good. Because when we graduated to the large business, we had to hand off all, and I mean all of our federal business to small businesses. Not only did we hand it off, we had to train them. We trained them. Some of our people left to go to those small businesses, and the other ones retired. And our federal business just dried up overnight in around 2008, 2009, 2010. At the same time, because of that business, we got very heavy in some social welfare project work, and we saved New York agencies in very heavy problems with budget. And they said, wow, you guys got some really good talent. I said, yeah, can you find us talent that we need that's not associated with you guys? Anytime somebody asks you to help them, right, you help them. And that's how you create business. Exactly how Eileen said it. You're talking to somebody that's a decision maker and they're asking you for help. You can't ask for better than that. To make a long story short, as that federal business was drying up, staff aug business went from 0 to about 480 consultants between New York City and New York State government agencies. And as Eileen said, yep, you gotta go knock on doors. And I would knock on doors every 2 weeks. I'd go up to Albany. And knock on the doors of the customers. I'd take my consultants out to lunch. Everybody thought I had an office in Albany. Little to say, that's what did the business. Now we're at a point where I can't seem to get to federal business because I can't market anything except for my staff aug. I can find somebody in hours that has government experience, that works in the other side of the country, and he's available in 3 days. I got a system in recruiting that is par none, that has algorithms that can go out thousands of characters and find the right people for the right jobs very, very easily. And I can't sell it. I can't sell it to anything but New York State, New York City, because they know who we are. We've gone after, as Eileen says, you try and do something blindly. We went after contracts and we won those contracts and we wind up on the contract. But I see requirements that come from New York in the hundreds on a monthly basis. I see requirements come from California, Kansas, Texas, add them all up, and I got about 10 of them a month. And I don't know how to change my profile. I try to knock on the doors of state agencies. I try federal agencies, but I can't seem to market what I can do because everybody asks, what do you do? Oh, we work in this very finite area, like the last two participants. We don't work in anything finite. I don't have any expertise except for finding people. I don't know how to break out of my business into where I can really make a good offer to the federal government with very low margins because we get people fast with very few people. What do I do?
All right. So, Nick, do you want me to talk about federal first for staff aug?
That's what I was thinking. Why don't you start with federal?
All right. Well, first of all, I think that your lowest hanging fruit is potentially reaching out to the primes that are there. If you can find people fast, they're struggling to find great project managers, program managers, administrators, engineers, IT. They're all winning contracts, but they're desperately looking for people. So I think that one quick, remember, when you sell to the feds, it takes a little longer, but selling to companies is easy peasy. You get in there, you're their guy to find their people. You know,
Oh.
once they love you, they're going to call you every day. So
Let me tell you,
PG&I
not to stop you, but now I've gone to a half a dozen 8A set aside prime contractors, and I call them on the phone and they say, "Hey, Ed, how you doing?" Right? They know me first name. How's your grandchild? Blah, 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 blah. But they seem to get such little business. And I don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't go after 8As. I would be going after the people that are landing the big ones. So one of the things I would think about if I were you, just quick turnaround things, because again, I still think, you need training. We need to do data analysis on who buys staff fog so we can focus on those agencies, and then we build an action plan behind it. But if you want a quick answer today, there's a couple publications. You've got govexec.com, which manages Federal Computer Week, Government Computer News, Federal News Radio. They are now the new media. It's like the CNN of federal news. Okay. So GovExec is free, but what happens there is there's a lot of announcements of, not only people getting awards or large projects, so you can see who the large companies that are suddenly getting $1 billion project and they got to put 1,000 people at a location. They're struggling, and we got to find their HR person to say, hey, you need extra people to find people for you. So I would say, yes, you are a large business, but the other largest could probably use you because you have bench strength and you have speed. So if you're a good support to them, to their recruiting people, that's a quick turnaround sale for you. Now, when it comes to the federal government itself, they do a ton of staff augment, but there's a couple ways that they look at it. Either you put butts in seats and you charge for those people doing those jobs, or you're charging for a recruiting fee to put a particular person on site. So one of the things I would say if I were you is I would talk to some of the HR and recruiting team members at the major agencies and just say, listen, you probably already have a staff augment client that is a small business. You probably already have one of those and one of those, but I want to be your guy when you can't find someone. I want to be your guy when you need someone so fast that you're literally putting me on speed dialing. You need to find these other small guys can't find anybody fast enough for you. I'm, Edward Fastaff, Cassini, right?
Funny thing is, I got a nickname called Fast Eddie.
There you go, Fast Eddie. We have a Fast Eddie car wash system here in Chicago. So when I was selling furniture fast, of course, out of all the furniture bought, only 1% was rental. Okay, Edward. So I had to go through every deal that people wanted to buy and say, pass. But what I would do to my clients is say, listen, you need furniture fast, call me. And if I can't rent it to you, I will find my buddies over in the furniture world to sell you what you're looking for. So, because I know everybody in the furniture world too, and you've got all your 8A buddies in your staffing small business that you can turn to as well. What you want to do is just say, listen, I know you have protocols. I know you have ways of doing things, but you need Fast Eddie to get you someone fast, qualified, quick. Put my phone number in your phone now, because there's going to be that 1 or 2 positions that you can't seem to fill. That certain brain surgeon or that certain type of nurse or that certain type of security cleared person, I have a way to find them, and I pre-qualify, and I can get someone on site to you in 3 days. Put my name in your phone as a backup. I would be saying that to every HR director in the federal government, as well as the state and local nearby you. But then also watch the news, read it in a whole new way. Someone wins a huge contract, they might need Fast Eddie to find them people. Okay, watch for who's winning. And there's news sources for that. So for example, one of the big things that's happening at the IRS, they had to hire like 8,000 people in the last couple months. Did you know that in Kansas? So there's certain departments that are, building up their staff because people aren't getting their checks back fast enough. They're going through old paperwork to get people their checks back. So when you read those pains, that equals people. So find the person behind the pain. Say, dude, I'm Fast Eddie. You need people and you're struggling. You're going to see it in the news. How can I help? Okay. Don't worry about your 8As. Don't worry. Go to the other larges like you, because I can tell you in the data, the larges are, you think that they took away because of the smalls. I bet you if I did a data dip on staff augmentation, 70% of contracts are still going to larges. I'm just saying. I see it. People think, oh, I'm not an 8A, so I'm out. Not true. There's plenty of business going to the largest. I've worked with staff augmentation companies that are the name brands. You can name a couple, and I'm not going to say who they are, but you can guess who they are. I've worked with them. And so I get your struggle. They just need to know you, Eddie, and your special way of recruiting and finding people. If they see your special way of doing that and they get the buy-in, you're going to be that emergency call. 99% of the calls won't be yours, but that one time when they needed 15 people that have a certain background on site within 30 days, you got it. No problem. So you need to do the old school way you did it. Don't call the smalls, call the largest and say, I'm here to augment your staff when you've got a sudden project that pops up on you. There's a lot of modifications happening where the contracts aren't being competed, and they're just modifying the contract and extending for the current vendors. And they might have to get another 50 people suddenly. You're going to read that in the news, give them a call. You need people, I can find it for you. Also, just one more thing. There are a lot of groups that are into federal contracting. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, you can see the list of groups I'm in.
Okay.
Those groups are federal contractors, et cetera. And you can say, you know, people are constantly posting, I'm looking for someone that does this. I'm looking for someone who does that. You can call those companies and say, let me find them for you. So there's a lot of that, those conversations going on.
That's a great. You'll probably be getting an invite from me to get linked together.
Please. I invite everybody to link with me on LinkedIn because I post every day a posting about federal contracting. And the idea is to inspire you to keep at it. Keep at it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Ed, and also at the state and local level, it sounds like you do an awful lot of business in New York State. Have you tried expanding horizontally to other states? And what are what are the challenges?
And we do, we have, and we have captured contracts. I have contracts in about 8 states, but I don't understand that when you look at the requirements that come out of New York, as opposed to all the rest of them, they're 10 times the amount. And I don't understand how states seem to operate. We provide IT services, IT consultants, everything from a .NET developer to a senior project manager to a help desk. And I don't understand. I thought, man, this would be easy. Just sell us. They said, oh, you can do this in New York. You got people at New York City DOE. We got a ton of people at New York City DOE. What education system is bigger than New York City in this country? Hardly ever. I've gone to at least 30 because I see them and they're blind. And Eileen's right. You can't do it blindly. I've gone to 20 or 30 different DOE agencies, shown them the task orders, shown them the systems that we worked on, and I won 2 contracts. And I placed 3 people.
These are all staff org placement contract. I mean,
yeah, they're all for staff org, and you know, they say, oh, okay, great. San Mateo, I got all the school districts between Dallas and Fort Worth. I've been on the contract for 3 months. I haven't seen one task order yet. They say, well, it's coming. It's coming.
Talk to HR, talk to HR, talk to HR.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's what I'm not doing.
Well,
I'm saying, okay, I got to find another contract to go at. And I write proposals. I've written 85 proposals in the last 5 months. And I won 5.
Talk to HR.
Okay, won't take up any more of your time, but I got the picture. Eileen, bless you. Nick, bless you too.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us. Please stay with us and join us in the future as well.
Will do. Thanks.
Thank you. So we have room for definitely one more individual. We have Ayodeji, who does organizational development consulting, and I'm just going to ask you to unmute. Yes.
Hi.
Welcome. And before we get started, I just want to say we have two others on the call with us who were expecting to participate. If you'd still like to do that, raise your hand and we'll try to get to you in the next 5-10 minutes here. So Ayodeji, where are you joining us from today, and what do you do and how do you do it?
Yeah, I'm joining from Rochester, Minnesota. Actually, the company that I work for is police, but we are in the land of cold. It's already cold, snowing outside already, so that's our life around here.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. And,
Yes,
and it sounds like you do organizational development consulting. What are your challenges?
Currently, we contract with the federal, with the state government, with counties, with cities, but we are trying to get into the federal government market, and we do organization development, which includes change management. We do leadership training, we do coaching, we do meetings, we facilitate engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those are the kind of areas where we operate. So, and then we do some talent management, performance evaluation. So those are the things that we do. So we've been working with state of Minnesota. Most of the work that we do is with government and non-profits. So we don't deal with for-profit, it's only government and non-profit that we do. And the next thing we are trying to get into is to work with federal government. So we're just looking for tips on how to work with federal government, how to get the contract. So if you can give us some tips on how to do that.
Right. So training. Well, you have training directors that are part of the HR, or what they would call human capital. But I just want to manage your expectations, because in the federal government, you might be able to do training if it's, let's say it's under 10 grand. You get to go in and do just a half-day thing. I'm just saying, remember the monkey pot, the idea of a small deal first to get them to love you. They can buy from you with a credit card or a direct contract if it's under 10 grand, if they want your training. For example, if they saw you train somewhere and they said, I want to bring you into our office, right? They can very easily just award you a contract and have you train that one time. But if we're talking about a whole change management, a whole leadership, you're going to test everybody and see what their levels are and all of that. And you're going to do some DE&I experience, which is where you're more embedded and hourly rates and all that. What's going to happen is they might ask you that they might want you to have something called a GSA schedule, or there's another type of contract vehicle that is the human capital and training services contract, HCATS. And so they're not recompeting it, so you won't be able to get on it, but you might be able to find a teaming partner on it that could bring you along, and you can kind of maybe shadow someone that does the same kind of things, and you can offer what you offer. But it's going to take developing relationships with the HR team, getting them to trust you, getting them to want you to help with this change management. The federal government's really into leadership training. I don't know if you saw in the news, and I know we're almost done, but during Katrina, all of the Coast Guard, they were told, stop flying after 8 hours, and all the pilots are like, there's people on rooftops, I'm going to go get them. And they had no communications amongst each other. They did everything eyeball, and they just kept picking people up off the roofs. Why? Because they took a leadership training on, if you think it's the right thing to do it. Basically break the rules, make it so. And they won all kinds of awards for that. So leadership training is very popular in the federal government, but you're probably going to need some training about how they buy training and looking at the data for doing that. So HR, recruiting, training, and leadership is a place to start, but you're also going to need to know that there's going to be ways they buy that. So you'll need to understand how that goes, but keep up the good work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And Eileen, let me just ask this question because we're up against it. I just want to put out there that I have a little bit more time, but I don't want to speak for you.
Yes, I do. I can stick around.
Okay, so if you raise your hand, we're going to get to you. We only have 2 people left with their hands up. So Ayodeji, feel free to stay with us, and thank you for joining us. So now let me see if I can bring in Miriam.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, welcome, welcome, Miriam. Can you hear us?
Oop, you just muted yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Good morning.
Hi.
Yes. No, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. This is in California. And what I do, I have EMR, EHR, which is electronic medical record. And what I basically have is a Gravitas MD. Thank you for raising hand. Is a, is a combined patient scheduling, eligibility checking, and counter charting, electronic claims billing, prescription, e-labs, and patient portal, dashboard, and reporting. So basically, Gravitas MD is a software as a service solution, is designed from ground up to meet the need of both small and large medical groups. It provides a straightforward, easy to learn and implement solution to ongoing difficulty encountered by, many providers. And I mean, I heard so many of the people were talking about the education school district. We can also provide that to the school-based, group, because if they want to send a claim to Medi-Cal or Medicare, we can help them. So I'm going to make it short. The challenge I'm facing is because I'm started. I'm never, it's like, oh, you must have experience. You must have done it. You need to provide referral. I do have referral, but it's in a different base. It is because I provided CHDP system, another app for, Product California for pediatric group to send their claim to Medi-Cal. So I guess I was like sort of the first one to start that. And that in 2017, State of California decided to change the format, which is, I believe, is CMS 1500. It used to be PM 160. PM 160 had more detail, like, hemoglobin, BMI. I can't go into the detail, but I think it was a failure to take that form away and place it with CMS 1500. But nevertheless, I can't fight about that, but it's been many years I've been doing that as, providing pediatric group throughout California to be able to send that form to Medi-Cal and get paid. So again, my challenge is that I have done it, but I haven't done it the way they asking. So I want to be able to participate or get, bid. But the fact that, when they ask, oh, you haven't done it, or if you need to provide the experience of, you've done similar things, I'm trying to figure this part. Thank you.
Right. Sure, I can totally help you with this. So you're talking about electronic health records, and I can tell you for a fact that VA has been having a lot of problems with their electronic health record systems. And they brought in Cerner, which is the main prime, and I think it was a $52 million contract that was awarded to them, but they haven't finished the job and it's still not perfect. And a lot of the contracts for medical for the VA itself, someone's can you mute yourself for just for a second? Someone's got some background noise there. Okay, so electronic health record type contracts tend to come out of a location in the New Jersey area for the VA, and they already have contract vehicles besides the GSA schedule. They have other contract vehicles called Vector, which is service disabled veterans only, as well as T4NG, which are some of the large primes that do IT for the VA as well. So they have pre-selected a lot of their contractors. So past performance or none, they already have a huge list of vendors that they're already using. Now, if you're doing coding, coding can be contracted in California at your local regional offices of the VA, but we would have to take a look at the data to see who they're using. At the VA, they are preferred. Now, they don't always award to service disabled vets, but they have to consider service disabled vets first for a particular project. Then after that, a minority or 8A company, and then after that, a woman-owned business. So you've got a couple of hurdles to jump over in order to go after the VA. But here's what my suggestion would be, is to potentially team with someone on those contract vehicles or who have those contracts, work as a subcontractor to some of them so you can start to build your past performance before you start selling directly to the VA. So there is a pathway forward for you, but it's going to probably be with current primes that already have the contract vehicles and they need extra hands on deck like you to help them. I just
Thank
saved
you.
you.
I think that's very good. That's really interesting. Yes, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Well, Miriam, thank you for joining us, and Eileen, great answer, and thank you for that. And we have just one more person, and Corridon, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you for joining us. And I know we've been chatting just a little bit during the session, but for the benefit of anyone else who's listening, what do you do and where are you doing it at?
I own a company that manufactures innovative advancements in sediment control and stormwater quality products that deal with storm drainage at the inlets, deals with dewatering operations and dredging and shoreline restorations and dealing with phosphates and nitrates as a component of it, stuff of that nature, civil engineered products.
Well, they certainly buy a lot of that all over the country. And what sort of challenges are you seeing, or what questions do you have today?
Well, challenges in the industry is fun because it's an engineered thing, but they have approved product lists or SWIP plans that are up to the contractor to execute and to pay for. And so there's really no regulation on it. And it's sort of a wild, wild west on water quality, sort of like erosion control was 20 years ago. And so I was involved with that, running a company, and now I own this company going on 7.5 years. And I've been steered by some of my larger distributors to look at companies like yours, organizations like yours, to get into the federal side of stuff. I only sell through distributors. That's all I've done. I've never sold direct. I have patented products, but they're all designed to improve performance while making maintenance and install easier. And part of what I touched on with you, Nick, was military bases, naval, Air Force, all the rest, airports, so on, have storm drainage systems, underground infrastructure systems, and getting in there, and they have the ability and the need to increase performance and know that that's going to take things that aren't just straw bales and stuff like that. So our systems are designed like our magnet on top to go in and do that, increase flow rates, increase sediment capture, but then their own people can maintain it instead of having to third-party contract that out like a lot of other stuff, and it helps refine their costs considerably while eliminating repairs and cleanouts and everything else on their underground. So that's sort of where I'm at.
And is this something that government agencies are buying the way that you sell it today, or is this a new sort of idea?
The answer is yes, but it's more to state and county and local level as for their utility contractors. And again, that information is one step, sometimes two from me, because I sell to resellers. And so I'm in the process of getting municipalities to change their specs, saying, hey, use this and nothing else, and actually be able to support that. And working with manufacturer rep firms to stock it locally that only sell to distributors, and setting that mid-level to have expertise, because the big boys are buying everybody, so they can't specialize in anything anymore. So it's creating that mid-level in the food chain kind of thing. And being a civil engineered product, there's room for all of that. And so it's redefining the market as of 2.5 years ago, when COVID came through and sort of made you reset everything, because engineers are working at home and not meeting with people like the old days when you could do the lunch and learns 4 or 5 times a day. So that's where I'm at and some of the frustrations we deal with.
And so you are interested in federal opportunities, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it makes nothing but sense. And when you mentioned sam.gov, I went on there and as this was going on and talking about IT stuff, which is not neither here nor there
Right.
for me. I went on and went through and found like 9 projects where I went and found the Army Corps person and emailed them my stuff on those projects. So all that stuff, I mean, whether it's river restoration, whether it's dealing with waste and meat packing plants or phosphate nitrate levels, or when they're putting in new holes in the dams to create hydroelectricity. Well, I've discovered to get over the 405 permits, those electric companies' land is not on their land, it's before and after. So if you put your solutions before and after on those lands, you speed up the process by 5-6 years. So yeah, there's been a lot of legwork on my part. I'm a certified professional erosion and sediment control, so I've trained over 50,000 engineers through conferences, all the big boys and all that stuff over the last. So yeah, I see you nodding, but yeah.
Yep, I'm with you. So a couple things. I would love to, I mean, if there was one thing to do is look at the data based on the keywords that you were talking about. Yeah. But, you know, I always like to tell you what I think the data will say, but I can't guarantee what I'm saying is the absolute truth unless I did my own analysis. But I would imagine you've already found that the Army Corps of Engineers handles and manages most construction, dredging, anything that has to do with water or berms or anything for the Army bases, as well as for the Air Force and the Air Force bases. They tend to get all the work to do that. And then NAVFAC, so the Navy Facility Maintenance Command handles all the naval bases and all the Marine bases. So those two. What was that called? NAVFAC, NAVFAC. So though, I mean, that's going to come up a lot, but where I would say is they're probably not going to buy directly from you. Like you said, you're going to have your distributors go. They need to find. Now I was talking about GSA schedules and I was talking some IT stuff. Okay. So now I'm talking to you in construction, multiple award task order contractors, MATOCs. They have multiple award task order contracts awarded to construction companies, dredging companies, design companies, engineering companies. Okay. MATOCs, that's what they call those contracts.
Do or they bid job those annually so that they can keep recurring purchases?
Every 5 years or so, by region, by location, they have their top 5, top 10. So what you need to find is not only to go to those agencies, you need to find the MATOC holders so that they know who you are too, because you might need to borrow their contract vehicles to get in quickly and quietly instead of bids on sand. So
well, and that's awesome.
And I just saved you here.
I love that, but then here's my experience when you get there is on the commercial, industrial, DOT, all that stuff, the EPA is the one setting the guidelines, but you can't find anybody in the EPA to talk to about adjusting those guidelines or improving those guidelines or modernizing those guidelines. And so that's another sort of, I mean, there's so many multi-level roadblocks, if you want to call it that, but that's, so you have two government vehicles operating, but not communicating kind of thing.
Right. And that happened with that lady with the DNA. I mean, the FBI was using something that was only 10% accurate for the last 20 years. She had to convince Congress to change the law. And then she opened up the gate. So yes, it might take some feet on the street to do that. But what I would do if I were you is think of that one person in pain that cares about that sentiment possibly being damaging to items, to people, whatever. Look for those couple of people that cares about water. Again, go to LinkedIn, find the water people in the water groups. And also, here's an association you need to join. Society of American Military Engineers. SAMI.org. They just had their national event early November, but everybody gets together. They're going to have a technical one. They have a national one time a year and a technical one. Go to the SAMI technical one, get a booth, and start teaching people about why this is important. And they will take it back to their bases and have.
Well, I love that. And on a state and local level, I'm approaching it from a waterworks utility standpoint by speaking at the State Rural Water Association shows and getting them behind it and working with the municipality engineers and sewer superintendents to change the specs so the contractors have to execute that. But yeah.
Sammy is your organization.
Got it. SAME.org. Thank you. That's a good start, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you, Eileen and Nick.
And Corridon, we will be in touch and talk about some of the state and local stuff. It sounds like what Eileen described, that's sort of a template for what you should be doing at the lower levels of government also.
Well, without a doubt. And Nick Davis and you and I have been communicating, and so I'll just have discussions with him on this too, because it's going to have to be a concerted effort if I get these things pinpointed, then getting them in their hands so that they can follow them up on that end as well. So
absolutely. So I will be in touch, and we appreciate you joining us this afternoon.
thank you so much. Have a great one.
Go get them. Believe.
So Eileen, with that, that's going to wrap us up for this afternoon. I would say, folks, don't forget, continue hearing about how to pursue federal contract dollars every single day. Connect with Eileen on LinkedIn. She is a frequent poster. Eileen, while I'm going through this, maybe you could share your LinkedIn page just while I'm sort of talking through some things.
Sure.
So,
It's just
go ahead.
share it on the screen.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
sure.
So go ahead and share that. I think you have the ability to do that. Eileen's a frequent poster daily on LinkedIn. You can call her at 312-636-5381 or drop her a line at her email, Eileen Kent Stevens@gmail.com. And remember, if you're not already a subscriber, start your free 14-day trial of MyGovWatch.com today. If you want to win more government contracts for less, you'll be glad you did. Eileen, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Nick. Thank you for having me, and go get them, everybody. Make your Sherpa proud.
Fantastic. Have a good day.